I'm Femi OK, and you're watching the Stream Home Edition. Now, one of the stories that continues to be underreported, difficult to report from China, is the situation of the Uyghurs. They're an ethnic Turkic group in mostly northwestern part of China. Now, the reason we are doing this story is because one of our viewers, one of our online community, suggested it to us. That is going to be the theme for all of this week. The stories that you hear, the discussions that we have, are actually suggested by you. So this is from Remen, and he says, and he tweeted to us, millions of Uyghur detainees are being forgotten in China's prison camps in the wake of, and he calls this the Wuhan virus, a virus threat in camps. So this is why we're having the conversation. Do you know about this story? Do you have relatives perhaps in northwest China? Do you have questions for our expert panel? You know what to do. Just jump into the YouTube chat. It's curated. It is available to you right now, and you too can be in the stream. I want you, though, to meet our guests and our expert panel. Hello, Johar. Tell us who you are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Johar Ilham. I'm the daughter of imprisoned Professor Ilham Tohti. I'm an author and human rights activist currently based in DC.
Good to have you. Rayhan, welcome to the stream. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, I'm Rayhan Asad. I'm an attorney based in DC. I'm also president of the American Turkic Lawyers Association. Good to be with you, Femi.
It's nice to have you. And Mamat Jan, welcome back to the stream. Hello. Tell everybody who you are.
Thank you for having me, Femi. This is Mamat Jan Juma. I am the Deputy Director of Uyghur Service Radio Free Asia.
I'm actually going to start exactly there, the Uyghur Service for Radio Free Asia. Information concerning coronavirus spread in Xinjiang is state secret. Can you explain what is the secret, Mamat Jan?
This is a very good question. And when the corona outbreak happened, we received some tips that at least 100,000 Wuhan residents are moving in or already in Uyghur region, and we wanted to follow up. And we did some investigation, but the local government and officials are guarding this information really, really tightly, and we couldn't get enough information. And according to the Chinese media, there are only 76 confirmed cases, 3 deaths. But according to what we have found out, at least one city alone in Atush, in one hotel, 99 people from Wuhan were quarantined. So far, China said nobody was infected in southern part of Uyghur region, including Kashgar, Aksu, and Khotan, and those parts of the region is mostly Uyghur concentrated areas. And so far, China is guarding this information really tightly and calling it a state secret, because when we called the local police, they said state secret. They couldn't share the information with us.
I want to say, and this is really important for our audience who are watching this right now, that we want to include multiple aspects of this story. And we really wanted to include China's government, regional official, and we did outreach on every platform you can think of. We email, fax, telephone number, absolutely nothing. We were unable to get that voice into the stream and into this discussion. Johar, is that a surprise for you?
Could you repeat your question? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to get multiple aspects of this story involved into this discussion, which is very important, because we can't talk about what is happening to various different Uyghur communities without hearing from the officials. It's very difficult to do that. How are you finding out what is happening to various people in an area that is very difficult to get information out of?
Yeah, it is getting harder and harder to get the information out, especially very recently, China has expelled Western journalists from the Chinese region, from China. And with that, all the information we can rely on are the state-backed, are released from state-backed media. And since most of the Uyghurs who are overseas have trouble communicating with their families who are still living in inside China, it's been very concerning. I haven't communicated with my loved ones, my family members, since 2015. I was able to communicate with 2 members of my family by third parties. my other Han Chinese friends. They had to personally go to visit my family in order to convey some messages to me. And I was not able to communicate with them directly. And I'm sure this is happening to lots of other Uyghurs, lots of other Kazakhs who are living outside of China.
Looking at this headline here from Jazeera.com, exiled Uyghurs fear spread of coronavirus in China camps. Rayhan, for your family that's back in northwest China, what concerns do you have about coronavirus? What are you hearing?
Well, I think at this point, China is making it very difficult for us to get a solid data. And based on the lack of transparency that we're seeing, at this point, we can only surmise what is happening. And, like these, I have a brother who's in prison, and I don't know since when. And I can only imagine what's its life like under this global pandemic that we're experiencing. And we're confined in our comfortable homes, but the detainees and prisoners, they are in these crowded facilities, and like the living conditions over there, the poor quality of food. I think those external factors would only exacerbate the existing conditions. So I think we can only surmise that it's deeply concerning situation as we speak.
Mamat Jan, I'm looking at dueling headlines. You go first. You go first, Mamat Jan, and I'll follow up. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yes, actually, yes. There are 1,300 camps confirmed, according to researchers and observers in Uighur region, across the region. And as we know, the living conditions are really, really dire, and the diet is poor, and they suffer from unsanitary living conditions and overcrowded cells and bad treatment. And that alone makes this camps would make a very fertile ground should a virus to be brought in, and the outbreak could happen. This is a concern of many Uyghurs and experts around the world. And so far, we couldn't confirm them. And I have two brothers at the moment. One is in a forced labor kind of facility. He's working in a factory after he stayed in the camps for some time, 3 years. And I have another brother. We don't have any information since 2017. And I have a legitimate concern of their health, let alone the coronavirus outbreak, but the pre-existing conditions in the camps make them really, really weak and vulnerable already.
Well, Human Rights Watch have also reported on the conditions in the camps or re-education centres, whatever the way that they are described as. Human Rights Watch is saying that this isn't okay. Zheng Xuan, who is a Chinese government spokesperson, addressed this in January. So this is very early on in the coronavirus crisis. And this is what he had to say. Have a listen.
他们发表的涉华的言论
Their China-related remarks and reports have always ignored facts and confused right and wrong. There is no objectivity at all, so it is not worth refuting at all.
可言，所以根本不值一驳。当前的中国的人权状况
The current human rights situation in China is at its best period in history.
关于
So, guests, we're getting some curiosity from our online audience on YouTube. Jassy Ford says, have any Uyghur activists produced a representative to have a conversation with any Chinese government officials? Is there or has there been dialogue at all about the Uyghur conditions? Rayhan, you start first. Have you been able to talk to anybody?
No, I haven't. My brother came to the United States in 2016 as part of the State Department's International Visitors Leadership Program. And just to give you a very quick background, he's a tech entrepreneur, and with his savvy tech skills and his love for his culture, he created a social media platform. And then, in fact, the Chinese state-owned media on multiple occasions, and I quote, give him these beautiful labels. He's a bridge builder, a positive voice, and a bright star in digital media. But after he participated in this International Visitors Leadership Program, he was detained in 2016 in March, right after returning from the United States. But ever since then, I haven't had any contact from him. I had no idea if he was in concentration camps or was he in prison. Like, I just had no idea. And it's really sad because this program in particular, many world leaders participate in this program, including Jacinda Ardern, the current UN Secretary General, and Margaret Thatcher as well.
Johar, this question of, have you been able to get in touch with anybody official who can tell you what is happening to your family, what is happening to your friends, what's happening to other Uyghurs? Is there dialogue or is there just nothing?
Since 2014, I have been trying to reach out to the Chinese government officials in order to get information about where my father was. By cooperating with the U.S. government for a few months, the Chinese government finally released a notice about where they held my father, and since then my father disappeared again. And for after another few months, without giving any notification ahead, my father was sentenced for life imprisonment. And for the past 6 years, I've been trying to reach out multiple times, but the Chinese government have denied responding. We have also sent multiple letters, but it was all sent back without even being opened. And so far, I don't know if my father is still alive. I don't know if my father is still being held in the same prison. I don't know if my father has been transferred to a camp or to another prison or to another city.
So,
if I could add one conversation.
Yeah, Rayhan, go ahead, please do.
Sorry, obviously it was very difficult for me to obtain any information about my loved ones, especially my brother. But his host, who became his friends during the United States trip, also wrote multiple letters to the Chinese embassy here and asked his whereabouts. And I don't think even their requests met with any response from the Chinese government.
This is so difficult. Yeah, Johar, go ahead.
Sorry, just to add in, and we're so far we only have 3 people on this show, but there are so many hundreds of thousands of people who are experiencing the exact same thing, not being able to contact their family members, and this is I would consider it as the smallest pain, because there's so many others. Their families have been tortured to death, and some of them been locked up for more than 10 years. Some of them are sentenced to more than 20 years. Some of them have not even received a trial, but they just disappeared, and nobody know where they are. At least a few of us, we know, we can give up the names, but there are so many Uyghurs, they don't have family members outside of China, and they can't even tell the world that this is happening to them. And this makes my heart burns even more.
I want to bring in Vicky Hu. She is an analyst for the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. And one of the things that institute has been doing is just looking to see what is happening with Uyghurs in northwest China. One of the allegations is that they are being forced to work against their will, being used as forced labor. This is what Vicky told us.
Since the publication of the report, as you can imagine, there has been quite a bit of backlash. Some of the companies we named have threatened legal action or denied any wrongdoings. The Chinese government has repeatedly refuted our allegations. And the foreign ministry have had to make, if I remember it correctly, 3 denials over 2 months, which is a very strong case of, trying really, really hard to deny something. But since the publication of our report, AP and South China Morning Post have written on the same topic, independent from us, and they have been able to confirm all that we've written and claimed.
So, Mama Jan, I'm just looking at CGTN, that's state media in China. So, Xinjiang refutes untruthful, biased ASPI report on forced labor. How do you even get to the truth of this? What do you know? What story are you reporting?
This is a very good question. CGTN, first of all, is a Communist Party-backed and government official media, which is spreading, according to the experts, lies about Chinese policy towards Uyghurs. According to ASPI, China transferred 80,000 people in 2009 and 2020, during or before and after of the coronavirus outbreak, to the Chinese coastal cities to work in a prison-like factories. And some factories, the big brands like Amazon, Apple, you name it. And in RFA alone, we confirmed at the last 10 days of February, which is in the midst of the highest outbreak happening in China, and people are in place, locked down every city, China moved 11,000 Uyghur youth from Khotan and Kashgar to Changsha, which is a very close city to the Wuhan city, where the ground zero of the Wuhan virus outbreak. So actually, China, according to human rights activists, China disregard Uyghur life, Uyghur health, because at the time, many Chinese workers were kind of furloughed. They didn't want to go back to the factories, and China pushed Uyghurs to work there. So CGTN report, at least according to our findings, it is a lie, I could say.
I'm just looking at some of the reporting, not just that Radio Free Asia has been doing, but Human Rights Watch. This is the Uyghur Human Rights Project right here. New briefing released. The UHRP has released its new briefing. Local residents in danger of starving in East Turkestan. There's a full briefing there. And then I think it's really important to actually hear. Let me just press this so you know what's behind there, so you can see what's behind the little blue arrow there. Have a look back here so you can see some of the reports that are coming out of East Turkestan, for instance. And what's happening on YouTube is people are asking, Naz asked, what is being done? Why isn't international pressure working? That's such a good point. Let me put that first of you to Johar. You're an activist. What are you seeing being done from the international community who have been hearing about these stories for years now?
Definitely, we have received more and more attention for the past 2 years. Before 2017, sadly, Uyghurs have not been receiving enough acknowledgement from the world, and people didn't even know who the Uyghurs were. And by the sad way, finally, people learn about the Uyghurs by the concentration camp. But still, there's so many rooms, there's so many actions can be done. Of course, the CDC, the United Nations, they could definitely send teams if the Chinese government allows. They could send teams to China, to the Uyghur region, to analyze the actual situation instead of just sit there and listen to the reports by the Chinese government officials. And I'm deeply concerned about those conditions by those inmates. We know that China has been trying to boost the economy due to the pandemic. The entire world's economy has been infected, including China. And now China is using those inmates from the concentration camps to boost their economy by exploiting them. They maximizing the employment. They minimize the payment and use the use of abuse. And this is deeply concerning to me. And I have not only my father, I have other family members who also been detained, and they're probably in one of those camps, those labor camps, but they're probably locked up in somewhere and being tortured in any moment. And I really urge not only the U.S. government, but also other government officials from different countries could join the fight, and I would call the United Nations to work with China to help to help. This is actually helping China with their situation. So China should not be denying it, refusing it.
Johar, we started this conversation talking about whether Uyghurs are, that it's an underreported story always, but also some concern about the coronavirus pandemic. Which is your biggest concern? What's happening to your family anyway, which is there a constant nagging unknown, or what is happening plus the coronavirus pandemic? Can you split that?
My another concern is, let's hope none of my family members have been infected with coronavirus, but the government could use the excuse of coronavirus to actually harm my family members or so many other Uyghurs, to cover up their crimes. We know that a lot of the Uyghurs have been tortured to death, but now later, next year or after a few months, they could blame it all on the COVID-19. They could claim that, oh, those people died because they were infected. And this is one of my biggest concern, that we never know how those people disappeared. We never know how those people died.
Femi, can I add one more point on this topic?
Go ahead, Rayan.
I think this is a wonderful question. One of your watchers raised. I think oftentimes corrupt governments can buy corrupt governments, but they can never buy the hearts and minds of people. There's a beautiful Uyghur expression which is very common across all Turkic culture. In English, we wish somebody bless you, and the response is thank you. But in Uyghur, we wish somebody good health. While the whole world is struggling with global pandemic, and we're isolated in our comfortable setting for the past 2 months, I really wish everybody good health, because I don't want anybody experience what we're experiencing. But at the same time, as we struggle to fight for our loved ones, I hope all of you are there with us, not to just bear witness as to our pains, but to take action. Because if not now, then when?
Rayhan, you make such a good point, and it's a point that's echoed by Akita. Mamat-Jan, I hear you. Just let me play Akita, because you've been talking about family members, and Akita, this is what Akita had to share with our Al Jazeera audience. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen.
This is my mother, Rahila Dawood. She's a professor at Xinjiang University and an international scholar. She has been detained by the Chinese government for more than 2 years, and she didn't commit any crimes. The reason for her detention is unknown. I haven't talked to her for more than 2 years, and I miss her every day. During this pandemic, I'm afraid that she does not have the freedoms to take precautions, and that these detentions will lower her immune system. I'm worrying about her well-being and health. So I urge the international community and human rights organizations to conduct independent investigations into camps and prisons in Xinjiang.
So what Akita says there, Mamat-Jan, is exactly what Uyghur Scientist says. And he sent us a tweet, a very long tweet, which starts with, close the camps immediately, release all the innocent people. He wants an independent team of international investigators. Could any of this even happen? If it hasn't happened now, when would it happen, Mamat-Jan?
It's a very good question, and this is something that Uyghur human rights organizations and international human rights organizations are calling for. Even the UN body wanted to go there and do an independent investigation, and China is always refusing it. And so far, recently, for example, Thursday, U.S. Senate passed a Uyghur human rights bill. It's called Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act of 2020. So this should be a very important response, legal response to China's crimes against Uyghurs. So if this legislation passed from the House, and it could bring a lot of power to the U.S. government to take actions against it, and other governments should follow through and take similar steps and make some similar bills.
It is remarkable, Mamat-Jan, Johar, Rayhan, how similar all of the conversations that we have about the Uyghur communities in northwestern China are. Now we have coronavirus to worry about as well. But we have the same brick wall that we come up against every time. But thank you so much for contributing to our show today. Thank you, YouTube, for your questions and your concerns. I will see you next time on the stream. Take care, everybody.